Hello everyone. Welcome to this very special season inside of our Hebrew calendar, our tradition's ancient calendar. It's a period known as the counting of the Omer, and it was a time of counting harvest of barley over a 7-week period that went from the holiday of Passover to the holiday of Shavuot. And now, over time, different traditions have developed to take this 7-week container of time and to say, how can we use this time spiritually as a way to go on an arc, on a spiritual arc that takes us from Passover, which is about liberation and freedom and about redemption, from a moment of redemption on an arc over 7 weeks to the moment of revelation. When at Shavuot, it says that it's the time that we received the Torah. All of us together, because we were all there at Sinai. So it began as an agricultural marking of counting the Omer, and it transitioned over time to also being about a spiritual marking. And in the medieval period around Kabbalistic mysticism, there became a practice of a daily counting of the Omer that sparked a spiritual practice around the Sfirot, around the divine emanations. And then since then, over time, people have taken this container and said, what can we cultivate spiritually in this time? So we are together at Nefesh cultivating Bitachon as a midah, as a spiritual value trait that we are collectively holding. Bitachon is trust. So for the next 7 weeks together, we're gonna go on a journey of cultivating trust. And we're so glad you're joining. There'll be one video a week, each week for 7 weeks. And the Bitachon grounding of the next 7 weeks is from a text from the 1080s, so a very old text called Chovot HaLevavot, written by Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda, and he wrote it in the language that he was surrounded with, which was Arabic. He wrote it in Arabic using Hebrew letters. And it's a very profoundly just moving text. I find it to be one of my personal favorite texts in our vast canon of wisdom text. It's a Musar text, or it was later called a Musar text when that became the label that was put on for all spiritual ethics and character development and spiritual development texts of a certain ilk. And in this, he has one midah for each chapter. And this chapter that I want to share with you, not the whole chapter obviously, although I'd love to do that. We're going to just look at the first part of one text on one teaching on Bitachon, on developing trust. And in it, I really like this text, especially for this Omer period. Well, really, to be true, I like this text all the time. But because it is very practical, and part of what happens in the big journey from Revelation, and we cross the sea, and we leave Mitzrayim, and there's these walls of water, and then we enter the wilderness, and then we come to, in this journey of 7 weeks, we come to the mountain, and the mountain shakes, and we receive the Torah. And then what is it that we are receiving? Something so practical. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to not do. To be good human beings and to be a community, right? A holy community. So in this Musar text on Bitachon is very practical. And so here's what it shares with us. As we want to make ourselves into vessels that others can trust and rely on, how do we do that? Okay, so in this teaching, Rabbi Bachya ibn Pakuda shares kind of a recipe, if you will. Like, I'm thinking of it as like a bitachon, a trust soup. And what are all the things we need to put in? So the first thing that he says we need to do to cultivate in ourselves is to cultivate in ourselves for the others around us. We need to cultivate compassion, rachamim, chemla, which I understand as empathy and understanding, and ahava, love. So that's like the inner feeling, like what do we need to cultivate? So that's going to be our first 3 weeks together, a week on each, a week on compassion, a week on empathy and understanding, chamla, and then a week on ahava, on love. Okay, so now you've cultivated this feelings, these important, deep, compassionate, loving feelings towards those around you. The next step, he says, is that you need to not be lazy. And you need to show up for the people in your life, in your community, in the communities and neighborhoods and world around us. So we need to show up. That's part of what it is to be someone that people can trust in, is that we show up, right? So, but of course in our tradition, sometimes we often name it in the negative. So don't be lazy, I would say, as show up, right? So that's week 4. And then the next, week 5, is this idea of hizuk, of strength. And the way he talks about it in this text is it's strength in terms of commitment, right? So you're showing up, great, that's great. But now you have to show up over time. You have to show up over time, right? It's not a one and done. We're in a situation with a lot of things unfolding in our world that would be great if we could just make them go away all right now, but that's not what it's going to be like, everyone. We need to be there for each other in the long haul, right? So that's part of what hizuk gives us, the strength and commitment to carry on. So that is what he says we need to do to be holders of bitachon in a way that other people know that we're there for them. We need to be loving and attentive to people in our life. We need to show up, and then we need to do that over time, right? To people in our life, to ourselves, right? To the world around us, for community. So this is the journey we're going to go on together, cultivating each of these so that when we arrive at Shavuot, when we arrive at a moment of receiving, right? There, when we get the Torah, we're in a place where we've gone on a journey of cultivating this very sacred and holy quality of bitachon. And of course, I'm talking in this sense of how we relate to each other. But for Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, this becomes then a foundational way for how then we can experience, how we can have trust in the divine because of the love and attentiveness we are feeling, because of how we are feeling held. So there's a sort of reciprocity. If we can develop these muscles and how we do it with each other, then we can experience being held by the divine in this way. So I wish you well in this journey of 7 weeks, and I will see you again at the end of the 7 weeks.